Hey everybody, it's Melissa at CIM. We're here today to review the release, excluding the person-centered service plan, since we covered that already last week, which there is a recorded webinar out there for you if you weren't already aware that you can watch. But we also added to that, I don't know if anybody noticed that in the email, but we added in there some important times in that webinar that we did before, so that you could skip to just the interventions or just the goals or certain reports that you want to get a refresher on instead of watching the long whole video at once. So hopefully that will help too. All right, so I'm just going to be going through the release list. I had sent out a highlighted one with the webinar registration, since we won't be going through everything. A lot of it is just, you know, I'll review it with you, and then other things I'll be showing you how it works, because it's not quite as simple as some of it. But so, for instance, we moved the hearing and exam and eye exam questions into section M at the end of the related. They used to be the first one, and we had some issues because I believe these are not required fields, and it caused issues on reports. So we moved them down to the end of the section, so it just takes some getting used to that they're not the first one, they're the last one in the hearing and vision. We also removed the number of medications questions from section R. So if you go into section R now, that question is not going to show up for the, you know, how many up to 9+. It was redundant to you tracking the actual medications and had caused CQUAR citations because they didn't match up. So we got rid of it because we can, on the fly, on any script or reports that we need to do, query the counts of your medications instead of that using that extra field that you didn't really need to do. We added adult foster care and home for the aged to place of assessment options at your request. So if you're in A identifying info, you now have that option available to you. We also changed a lot of different questions to match the backup plan report so that they were consistent. So for instance, my evacuation plan in section D, it's that instead of just evacuation plan, we put out the same text that's going to show on the report. So there's a few things like that that are listed there. We had issues with some duplicate ICD codes that were being allowed because the text was different, because after the government changes sometimes the descriptions on them, and it saw a different description even though it was the same code and let it in. So we've now made that so that can't happen anymore, so we can't have that duplication. We made a bunch of changes related to the late reasons, the reassessment dues within the 7 days of returning from the home from the nursing facility. And it was really only applicable to the waiver program. So anybody that has in their episode waiver something, be it waiver I, P, PB, waiver Y, any of those things in the episode, it's going to prompt as late for a late reassessment reason, if it's later than, you know, than it was due after that 7-day period. But any other programs, if they never had waiver in the episode, it will not do that. So this will help, because a lot of people were having to fill in late RA reasons for non-waiver people when it didn't apply to their rules for the program. So we took it out except for waiver programs throughout the system. We added the caregiver legal guardian to the missing data report, because that actually feeds in the IHC actually has some hidden fields that we're filling because of that caregiver, and those were showing up, but you didn't know that you had to fill it in. The caregiver is missing. So we've added that. And then we also fixed the issue with the legal guardian when there's no caregivers or no active caregivers. So it was saying, hey, you know, this needs to be reviewed, and it didn't because you didn't have any active caregivers or you had none at all. So we fixed that so that won't show up on the reports or indicate in the when you're going through a review missing process. We also fixed the medical providers and pharmacy report. It was having an showing the word null when the first name wasn't entered, and since most people it doesn't, you know, you're doing businesses, first name didn't apply. So we made sure that that doesn't print that way anymore. We also, in the progress notes, made a bunch of changes to that, and let me just pull one of them up. So in these, there's 3 drop downs. There is the contact method, and in the contact method, we added voicemail, so you can record that separately from a phone call. In the contact reason, we added confirmation of visit and Medicaid application as options, and then the person contacted, There's a bunch of them. Social Security, family member, guardian, sports coordinator, physician, and supervisor are all new to that drop-down that you can start using. We also added hospice as a referral type. If you're entering referrals, that now will be an option up there. And now we're on to attachments. So this is a major change for everybody. And basically, you're now unlimited on how many attachments you can put in the file. So the attachments are actually shown by this paperclip icon over here. And if you click that, it'll come out, the panel will come out just like it does for the to-do items now and the update comments when you're in certain sections. And it defaults to show all attached files. You can also choose to show file as attached to selected record. And what that means is the system now is set up that you pick a record and you can attach a file to it. It always will attach to some record, that whatever one you're clicked on the left. So right now, I am clicked on this progress note. I could attach a file to this progress note, and if I said show files attached to selected record, it would show up for that. But it defaults to show all because most of the time you're not going to even know where it was attached. You just put it in there. So we default to that. There's also a file tag filter here. And the file tags are basically the replacement of what your file types were in the old way of attached files in the Nifty files. So it defaults to show all of them that you had before between the two of them. And you have the option at your agency to add more. That is done through the tools menu, and I'll show you that in a minute. But that's where this list is coming from. So you can change these descriptions, et cetera. I wouldn't change the ones related to Nifty, but if you want to change the ones that are related, that are not the Nifty ones, so obviously face sheet, FAN, MFP consent, receipts, and transition plan are part of the Nifty one. So I wouldn't change those descriptions, but if any of the other ones you want to change and update, you may do that. The thing is, though, if you've got files that are already attached to those labels from the prior version, which many of you do, it's going to change those descriptions on all those existing attached files too. So I wouldn't be changing it to vary greatly, but if you choose to, then you can. So that's available. And then these are the attached files for this person I've got loaded so far. So this is the file name, and if you hover over it, it shows you the description of the file. And if you click on it, that's how you downloaded it, and it downloads to your, or however your browser downloads. It may prompt you to open and save, depends on how you've got it set up. But clicking on the file will download it. There's a push pin here, and what that does is it takes you to the associated record. So if I click that push pin, I'm right now on that progress note. It's going to take me to where I actually attached this, which I actually attached this to a Nifty record. If I scroll up, you can see where I'm highlighted. But so this has actually got attached to a Nifty record. If you need to edit anything about the file, you click the little pencil, and up will come that information. So you can change the description, the file tags are drop downs in here. It shows you who uploaded it, who owns the file, and the date was uploaded. And then there's these two check boxes, state viewable and share with agents. This is a way for you to share files with other agencies or state/CQAR. It's really both on that, CQAR are state users. So this is a way that if you're getting a CQAR audit and they're telling you, hey, I need to see this file, and it's attached to the record already, you can just go in there and check state viewable and tell them, hey, now you can see it. So that's an option. Share with agents could be used for things, it will be used for Nifty for sure, but it also could be used at the waiting list level. People had talked about wanting to attach the hearing and appeals letter that went out so that the other agency knows it was sent. So you may want to share with agents on that. But the share with agents will not work for any files below the episode. Let me just show you that a second. So if I say I'm going to attach something to the next assessment here, all you have to do is click Add. It'll prompt you to choose or browse for the file depending on your browser. Let's see, test file, and whatever. Pick a file tag you need. This is required. But you'll see right here, I can't click this. I'm trying to, it's grayed out. I could have the state view this at the episode level, but anything from here and on down, you can't share with agents because the episodes are private to your agency. They can't access it. So we've disabled it from being able to share. If you want to share something, it has to be attached to something above the episode level. Okay, so you could check that if you want them to see it, and then you just click Attach File. It goes up, and then it shows over here. So there's my test file I just uploaded. Nifty files. NIFTY files should be attached to the interview date here at this level. So any files that you need to attach should be attached at this, where it says the date and then the agent code. And I'm not I don't know why I was doing that, sorry. So if you want to attach one, that's where you should be attaching those for the face sheet fans, for any transition plans if you're doing it that way. And anything else you need to communicate to the state, you should be attaching it at that level. Anything above that, the file is actually attached to records. So if there's not really a separate record for it, it's going to go and jump up to the actual record above it. In this case, NIFTY transition diversion isn't an actual record. The records are underneath it. This is just a label. So if you attach something to this and you were clicked on this, it's actually going to attach it to George Jetson, the participant record, because that's the closest one it has. Because that in the tree, you know, there's nothing above this on the left. So make sure you're attaching them here, and the state will find it attached there, so that it's associated to the NIFTY record. And when you attach a NIFTY record, I'll click Add and show you here, it automatically is going to check the state viewable and share with agents. You have the ability to uncheck these things, but if it's a NIFTY file, those both need to be attached. That's how NIFTY files work. So for any NIFTY files, those should be left checked so that the state can view it. It's just helping you so you don't have to remember to do it. That's all that is. We couldn't make them read only in that situation, but so you want to leave those checked for NIFTY files. The other thing that's different about this is NIFTY files. This was a NIFTY file, I believe. In a NIFTY file, you used to be able to delete attached files in the NIFTY files for 24 hours after you uploaded them. And we couldn't institute that rule just on the NIFTY versus the rest of the files because it's all really the same thing. So now, because of how we're doing this, the NIFTY ones are locked immediately. So you want to be careful when you're uploading to NIFTY because the delete file is going to be grayed out every time. If you have a file that needs to be deleted from the NIFTY portal, you're going to have to ask the state to delete it. So you want to make sure that what you're deleting or adding to NIFTY records is the proper file, so that you don't have to ask them to delete anything. You can also download. This is icons available here if you want to download it from here, but clicking on it over here is faster, obviously. But otherwise, if you have the delete permission, all of the attached files are under one permission now, case attached files. If you have that delete permission in there, then any other place that you've attached a file, let me go to this one. Where did I attach this one? So this I attached to the next assessment record. So if I edit that one, the delete button is enabled because I have the delete permission. So you can delete files that way. So that's how that works. Let me check my notes and make sure I haven't forgot to tell you something. Oh, I want to show you also what it looks like in a wait list record. So if you go to the waiting list, and I didn't add one yet, but that's fine. Oh, I don't have, I thought I did set this up. Oh, man. Okay, let me choose medications instead. It's the same thing. Let me add a med, because waitlist needs a lot more prep work on my demo. All right, so if I add a medication, when you get in here, you're going to see the attached files as a new column with a paperclip. You click that paperclip, you'll get the same thing. You'll notice that the add right now is disabled, and I believe this is because I forgot that I need to save that record first. Yeah, so it doesn't do it to a record that doesn't actually exist yet. So you have to save it first, and then you can click the paperclip, click add, and then choose your file as is. So that's how you would get to the attached files if you want to attach a hearing and appeals letter in the wait list, or like I said, medication. Maybe you want to copy, put the prescription copy of it from the doctor attached to it in here. It's up to you. It's all optional. None of this is required. This is just, if these are things that you're interested in doing, you can do it, but you do not have to. So that's how that would look in a grid entry. So any of the medications, waiting lists, medical providers, pharmacies, they're all these grid entries, and that's how you would do the attached files. So actually, I'm just going to attach a file here because I want to show you. what it looks like elsewhere. And I'll just, oh, they're medications, so I can't share with agents. Thinking it's a wait list. No, it's not. So it shows up here. So when you click the box within a grid, the list of files that are already attached will show below, and you can edit them from here. But you can also get access to them from the right here. So my test file that I just uploaded now shows up here, and I can edit it from here. I can use the push pin to go to it, etc. But they'll all show up on this panel as well. So that's how those work. The other oddball thing is these file tags. Ultimately, you have the same list as other agencies out there, including SILS for the nifty ones. If you're using a file tag filter, this file tag filter only applies to file tags at your agency, because everybody has really their own description. So if you change Face Sheet Fan to something else, you shouldn't, but if you did, it's not going to change every other agency in the state. It's your record. So when this filter is applied, it's literally attached to only your files. So if you're trying to see something, another agency attached, you're not going to if you use the file tag filter. You'll want to use show all, even if they're the same thing and they're like, oh no, it's an MFP consent, you should be able to see it. No, you won't be able to see it because another agency had uploaded that, and their file tag, even though it's the same name, is really not the same behind the scenes, because they're all different records of those file tags. So if you're trying to view other agencies, make sure this is always at show all. You might always want it at show all anyway and make life less complicated, but you do have the ability to filter it should you need to. Okay. So yeah, so you could attach files at the participant level if you wanted to. I think I have one, or I don't. But if you need it, you want to do that, that would be maybe, you know, if you wanted to put a copy of the Medicare card or the Medicaid ID card or the Social Security, et cetera, so that you know that you had proof, you know, you could attach those at the participant level. You may not choose to share them with agents on that. You know, that's up to you guys and your own policies at your agency, but you have that option should you need it. So that's that. And that's all I have for the attachments here. Now, the attachments are also available in the Compass Next area. And let's see here. I don't have anything there. Let me go to search from here. There's that participant summary throughout all of Compass Next. And you have the paperclip icon as well through the Next software. So if you click that, go to attach files, it will bring up it's the same, but it's a different, you know, screen, but it's the same functionality. You can't add attached files here because it doesn't have a record to associate it to, but you can view and download and access them and go to them from here. So that's an option as well if you want to use it through Compass Next. That's there. Okay, so that's attached files in a nutshell. Other things I want to show you. Let me check back on my list to make sure I'm where I think I'm at. Status. So if I go into George again, and I'm just going to open up a case file. I'm going to this episode. The status button is no longer located here. We moved it because we're finding that people have smaller screen resolutions out there, and these buttons are all starting to wrap because we've added more. There's this new add progress note that we talked about on the last call. And we have the info button that was added more recently. We tried to, you know, we removed the word review missing, I think, in the last release before this one to try to make room, but we just don't have it, the real estate for it, along with this Compass Next sidebar too as well. So with that, we said, okay, we really need to move navigation type things out of these shortcut buttons. So status is it navigates to another record theoretically because it's not part of this screen. So it's now under the quick links to get there, as well as these other quick things you can get to within here. But this takes you then to the status record like you're used to. You still have the button here. We didn't worry about that because there's not the room problem that we have up here. But now if you want to get the access to the status, you just go here. When you hover over it, it shows this, and you click status. So it's still one click. You just have to move your mouse around. Okay. We also changed some programs. They, you know, we're a little behind the times on this change, but we changed OSA to the ASA prefix in program and wait lists. There was a request to add a PERS program status that's been added. We added a hospice residence placement as a closed reason in a care setting status for you. And we had some issues with the memo page, the memos not showing up when there was a lot of statuses, like if the person's in and out of the hospital all the time, or a lot of program changes because of nursing home stays, whatnot. The memos were popping off the page, so we fixed that. In Compass Next, there was an issue with that Add to Compass Go Sync button that I was on, and that participant summary was at the bottom of that. That was not allowing you to check that when the person was closed within the last 30 days, so we fixed that. There was also a search issue on the Medicaid ID and the participant search. You now can search by that, and it will find it correctly. It had to do with deleting zeros was causing a problem. We updated all of those widgets, the timely contacts, timely assessment, to reflect that change with the 7-day due coming out of the nursing facility. So it only applies to waiver and not everybody. And we updated, of course, the monthly contact progress note type because that changed with this release, so those were all updated there. We enabled the flexible fields, like some of you already requested us to remove some of the monthly monitoring 2-week follow-up questions, so that was enabled for Next because it didn't have that. There was also a little weird bug that said edit to-do item on all of the hover text in the Next to-do list options, and so we changed that to say more options because it wasn't necessarily even edit to-do item. And under overall, Next was upgraded under the hood too, so it may behave a little differently. You shouldn't really see any change on your end, but there was underlying platform changes that we upgraded. To-do items, here's another one that we updated the 30-day contact due because it's the monthly monitoring. So we had to change that to the new method of a monthly monitoring progress note versus that monthly contact checkbox. It's not there anymore. And again, update the next assessed due to-do item to do the 7-day one. Yeah, that's a lot of this is the same thing. And then the other thing is, a lot of you in the last release, the case file selector, which when I say that, I mean when you do search case files and show here this information, this next assessed due was not reflecting the 7 days return from nursing facility. Neither was the next assessed due report in the system, in the reports portal, I mean. And they were the old methodology of just the standard 180, 90, 365 days. Now everything is now synced up throughout the whole system on when the next assess is due, and they do include that due within 7 days if they were a waiver ever in the episode, if they're coming out of the nursing home. So those will not differ anymore like they were in the past. There was an issue with the forgot password that we fixed. There was, if you had an email address missing, then it was causing errors. There's also that back and arrow button with the multi-record editors, which is, when I say that, I don't mean your browser back. I mean these back and these ones here. I showed that in the last webinar, but basically as you're going through the assessment, these are going to light up, and as you're going into like the the master medical providers lists in there, these will light up so that you can easily get back to the case record or go to different places in the case record back and forward. So those are very helpful if you're trying to get around quickly. So we fixed some issues with that. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is the arranged service provider list. So I didn't show this on the PCFP webinar. So under agent-specific data, once you have the permission set in the manage users, because there's a new permission for this, you'll see an arranged providers. And this is where the arranged providers are entered for the PCFP arranged services. So you just click add, et cetera, just like you do for medical providers, pharmacies. It's the exact same methodology there. The only difference in here is that down below, you can say which counties that agency serves. If an option is you just click, and then you unclick if you don't want them. So it's not a control-shift click. It's literally click and unclick. We made it as simple as we could. And then they show down with the selected ones down below here. So you can't edit this. You edit the screen up above. and then what services they provide. So if they provide multiple things, you can select multiple, or this one's just hospice, but it's the same, click and unclick to unselect from that list, and they show down below here. Now I will say, I said this in the release email, but those of you that had us load these for you to preload them, and you gave us these county served and provided services, we found out after the fact, as we were about to run it, that it wasn't working, and found out it was a much more complicated process on how these actually function. So we could not convert that part for you. So if you want that information on the ones we loaded for you, you're going to have to go in and select them manually on all the ones we loaded for you. So we apologize for that, but we didn't realize it was that touchy. It's very picky. So there's that. So then that, and then the other one that we've added in this agent specific is the attached file tags list that I was showing you before. This is where you can manage those. Again, same thing, but these are even simpler. There's literally just one text thing. So you can change them, you can delete them if they've never been used. If they've been used, it'll error. But this is where you could add your own filters to tag the files with. And you have to have, again, there's a permission in the manage users that have to be added for you to be able to see that too. Okay, now we also had an issue in all of these agent-specific data. We were seeing the missing relevant history and info buttons up in here, so we fixed that because that was kind of silly. I mean, why would we show all that? So we got rid of all that. So manage users, I'm going to show you these new things. So if I go into my person, Harry, first thing I want to tell you is we are now requiring, if you put in SC initials, we're requiring the phone number because the phone number is being used on the backup plan and PCSP reports for the supports coordinator when it says, you know, your supports coordinator is, you can contact them how, but this is where that phone number resides. So we're requiring now, if you update this record, it's going to require a phone number if you put in SC initials. We're also requiring the email address for everybody, and our plan was, and maybe still is, we're still figuring it out, that the new release in 4.0, the email address would be the user ID. We're still not sure on that, but just to make sure, we want to make sure they're all collected in there. And it helps us with support too. If people are calling us, and then we can go look it up and, you know, get a hold of the right person. So the other thing that you can put in here is the credentials. This is what you're going to want to update right away for all your supports coordinators, because those credentials will print on the PCSP reports when they do their signature, because a lot of, you know, you want to have their credentials, that they're which professional type they are, et cetera. So that you would enter here. You can put whatever you want. If it's, I've seen some with that, you know, this, comma, that, you can put all that in. I wouldn't go too overboard because I don't know how big it is, but that's where that is to be filled in before you get too far with the PCSP stuff. The other thing is we updated the user report in here, and if I show you that, where'd it go? Oh, right, I have to be on the main page. 1 second. I think, did I actually do it? All right, I don't think it did, but I have one more thing I want to show you anyway before I leave here. So case attached files, this is where it gives the ability to attach files to the records anywhere in the case files. There is no more NIFTY file, that's gone. If you had users out there that NIFTY had delete permissions, but this one did not, then we added delete permissions to this so that they still are able to do the functions of their job. So some of these permissions would have changed if NIFTY had a greater permission than the case attached files did. So we wanted to make sure that they were up and running. And then down in the agent-specific data area, agent, arranged service provider, and attached file tags, that's where this information is for you to add rights for those who have ability to add and change and delete, or just view only for maybe a lot of your people. You may want to lock those down so that not anybody can do it. So those are all new and would need to be updated. All right, so now let me get back out of here. So in the report for this, we've updated both the active and all to include the email address and phone number. And I didn't realize it was probably going to take a while because this is our QA database. But so what you can do is if you're, when you're especially going to be setting this stuff up and maybe you don't want to deal with errors later, so when you get a moment of time, you'll want to go through and update everything. You could run this report to see who already does have email and phone numbers in here, because otherwise they're going to error for at least the phone number for the SCs, but email for everybody. So now we've added that column so you can see that information if it's present or not. So that's that. All right, the next thing is the waiting list report. So under reports waiting list, which you've had before, there are 3 new reports that show up: contact detail, contact summary by priority, and contact summary by PSA. These were all reports requested by the state, and I'm not going to run them because I have no data in this thing, but I did do a few sample reports, which honestly I'm like, where did I put them? Let's see, I think I put them in my user directory. Let's see. Yep, okay. So I went and got rid of the details on some live stuff here, but if you run the contact detail report, you can do all waiting or, for different programs, different PSAs, just like your other selections you have. And this is showing the names of people organized by priority. And it's telling you when they started on the waiting list, what their last contact date was, and how many days since the last contact. If they're already enrolled in a program, that's going to show up here too, so that the state knows that they're being taken care of in other ways. Especially, this is how you're contacting them, because you put them in care management, but they're waiting for waiver, et cetera, so that they can see that. Added to waitlist by, this is the agency that added them, and then the last contact by is the agency that last contacted them. The state wanted to be able to see, that hopefully it isn't just one agency always following up on all the people on the waiting list, because there's been, grumblings about that in the past years. So this is, the state wanted to be able to monitor that waiting list contacts were being done on time, et cetera. And this is a report that shows them that for everybody, the detail-wise. They also added the summary ones that are also here by priority and by PSA. Oh, and one thing I want to show you here too is there's also in the contacted, you could choose no contact in the last 90 days. So that would filter the information out to show you only those people that are over 90 days, which is bad. But maybe you've documented them a different way, but I don't know how the rules are for that, so don't quote me on any of the policy for it, but that's what that does. So let me go and pull up the by priority one. So the by priority one, bring this down. It just groups by priority and shows you how many with no contact in the last 90 days, and it tells you the total of people waiting on the list with no contact in the waiting list, and how many average days of those 3 people they've been waiting. And then priority 4 here, there's also a contacted. So if you had any, it would show here, but there was none. So contacted in the last 90 days, it tells you which agencies were the ones that last contacted them. So if more than one agency would contact them, you'd have this same label twice with 2 different agents, and the total waiting based on that information and the averages. And then there's an overall all priorities. We do exclude any participants new to the waiting list in the last 90 days because they don't count, so they're not counted against you because you haven't had to contact them yet. So that's just a footnote there. Then there's also the PSA report, and it's the same thing except for it's organized by the PSA of no contact and et cetera, and the last agent that contacted them, et cetera. So this is just the state wanted these reports. You can use them if you want to. I assume that they will be in the future when Elizabeth probably has time or somebody else gets assigned that task. But that's what they came about for, and you have access to use them for anything you choose to as well. Okay, so the other thing in here is we've added a new training videos link under the help. And so if you click that, it shows you all of the webinars that we've done. At the top, we've got the latest 2 so far. We'll be putting this one as well on here when we're done. These are the ones by Grand Valley that they put together. And then these are other ones that we've had in the past that you could use that are mostly up to date. They're not, they were recorded a long time ago, but they do have information in there that could be useful. So we leave them up there for you to access. They were previously on the release notes page. But Grand Valley brought up a good point that it'd be nice to have it separate, so we separated them out. So that's available to you from underneath the help menu. We also updated the IHC assessment manual to move those fields around that moved the last release, because we totally forgot about this, and some of you thankfully pointed that out. So the assessment manual now matches the order of the questions in the system. We did a bunch of different things with the HIPAA files. I wasn't really going to go into too much detail on that. It's just where you did a lot more automating for that on our end, so that we don't have to be involved as much now that everything's a little more stable than it ever had been before. Clear access, there were some changes related to the changes in the system, such as removing the number of meds. The POC review name is the same. It's the PCSP review, because literally PCSP review is the same as it was. We just changed the name in the app, so you can still use that. And then we added a bunch of PCSP related views too in there. We updated the Next Assess Due report in the reports portal to do that same methodology of the Next Assess Due in the 7 days of coming home from the nursing home, if waiver. We updated the Plan of Care report to show only assessments with Plan of Care, not PCSP, because it was showing everything. So we updated that so that won't happen. There is a bug with that report right now that we'll be fixing. You can still run it within Compass, but the one that's available in the reports portal is airing at the moment. We updated the progress note report in the reports portal to show all the new fields. There's an aggregate quality assurance report that's very similar to the missing data one. It just, you know, you put in the same information like you do missing data aggregate and get all of the quality assurance for that. We had an issue with the status by day function, which means nothing to you except for that it affects a lot of different reports. And the one that it was affecting that we needed to fix is the care plan bill comparison reports. If you selected a program, it was excluding certain people if they had the program statuses ended on October 1st, because it was being really goofy. So if you run them again, I wouldn't be recommending just go out and run them all, because, you know, there's enough stuff going on in the system today. But in the future, if you go backwards in time, you may see a slight discrepancy if you were using program as a selector in there. If you weren't using program, you were getting the exact right amount. We had just a minor change to the label in the report header on the participant expenditures to get rid of the WISP board. It's one of the places left. It was kind of interesting. In vendor view, we added the PCSP report to vendor view. That is not part of the new assessment notices that are generated because you're not going to be done by the time that new assessment notice generates. But it is available from their participant reports tab. They can be running that now, although there's nothing there yet. And we updated the backup plan report, just like we did in Compass that we talked about on the PCSP webinar. And we removed the assessment section fields completed by and dates from the assessment report, so they don't have all that extra garbage, basically. So that's all we had to show you for today. I'm just looking at my thing. I did send in the release email a lot of information. I apologize. But the things that we wanted to give you some tips on what needed to be done sooner than later, just because, you know, we've given you a lot of information, so let's, you know, narrow it down here. So the first thing you guys want to do is whoever's doing the managing users in Compass to go in and give people the rights to do that agent arranged service provider and agent attached file tags, so that you can start administering those agency lists. They would also want to go in and update the sports coordinator user accounts to include the credentials, and then that's going to require a phone number and email address now too for them. Adding any additional file tags that you want. There's also some updates to some scripts that's happened, the SC monthly performance and monthly contact due. You can't run them right now because it's bad data, but, well, not bad, it might be out of date or nothing, depending on, I can't remember if that one's going to have nothing. It might have nothing until we get done with the process that's running right now. The overnight stuff didn't run because the backup was still running late last night, so hopefully by the end of the day we'll have that in there, if not tomorrow morning at latest. Nutritional risk and demographics data, those were updated last in June and didn't require a new release because of the changes. That was just the update to the number of medications to count the medications. We already had that, so we updated them in June, but you may not have re-downloaded it and it will error if you're using the version before June. Any agent arranged service providers, if you didn't have them loaded by CIM, adding those. And if you did have it loaded by CIM, to add the county served and services provided manually if you want that. And then eventually, I said later at the end of this, you'll want to notify vendors of that additional PCSP intervention report that's available. But right now it's going to be blank until you actually add people with it. So, and they won't get notified that you updated it. So, right now they'll be all, no data to report. We do have a number of issues that we're going to be fixing in the next few weeks, maybe sooner than that. There's some report things. The intervention report it has a section gold missing issues. It's the same thing that you see in the summary for goals of that, but it printed on the report, and that whole section's not showing up. We've got it fixed here, but we have to release it. The intervention report and vendor view, which that's another reason not to tell them it's there. It's not showing the purchase waiver interventions, and there's minor formatting issues to match the other one that's in Compass, because they technically are separate reports. So we'll be fixing that here shortly too. The vendor view assessment comparison report sections are printing out of order. We actually found it's been that way for the last release too, and no one let us know. So I don't know if they're paying attention or just got used to it and didn't care, but they've been wrong for a while, so we're going to fix that. Like I mentioned earlier, the old plan of care report in the reports portal is going to error, but you can get access to it through Compass, so you shouldn't have a problem with that. Issues addressed in interventions, that those boxes that show you all the sections, it's not part of the review missing process in interventions, and it is part of the goals review missing, but not the interventions, so we'll be fixing that. And if you click review missing while in the interventions, it starts going through the goals instead, so we're going to fix that as well. There's some other minor things that we're looking at too, that you probably won't even notice behind the scenes, but so let us know though if you see anything that's not on this list of issues that you're having. I know we've had a few people with some patch issues, so if you have that, please let us know so we can help you resolve that issue. And then also if your Compass Go users end up with having a sync failure rejection message, we want to resolve those before they enter any more data into Compass Go. We haven't had any of that reported quite yet this morning that I'm aware of. I know that I checked at 9 a.m. and we already had 117 successful syncs, so we know it's working, just not necessarily for everybody for whatever odd reasons there are out there. So just hang with us and we'll get it resolved. I had a question. If you have questions, please feel free to type in the webinar. I have covered everything I'm going to, so I'll start looking at those. Attached files, are they viewable in Compass Go? No, we didn't want to add Compass Go to have to download all those files, so no, they are not available in Go, it's only online. And the CQUAR and state entities get access to records if you check the state viewable box. They can see it anywhere. The only people that can't see it everywhere would be other agencies. So if you check that state viewable, they can get in and they'll be able to see it just like you do. The state sees it the same way you do, just it won't show up in their list if you don't give them permission. So those are good questions that I forgot. Any other questions? I don't have any more in here at the moment. I'll wait a couple seconds to see if people are typing. All right, well, I don't see any other questions popping up. So if you do have questions, you can, it'd probably be best at this point to email the help desk, because phones are kind of crazy. One question just came in, sorry. How do you change permission to allow a state view of attached file? Let me show you that quickly. If you're in here, I gotta get rid of some stuff on my screen you can't see. When you go in here and edit the file just by clicking this, I don't know which one I'm picking on, so bear with me. This state viewable, you can uncheck it whenever you want. So it doesn't have to be done with the upload itself. You just check it if you want them to view it. So you can update it anytime, or when you add it, it's right there on the add too. So you can go into any file and do that at any time. Okay. All right. So as I was mentioning, emailing the help desk if it's not incredibly urgent. If it's incredibly urgent, feel free to call. But we're going through a number of things that we're having with a few different people right now, I know. So, all All right, well, thank you, and let us know if you're having any issues or questions. Bye.